Jeff Hampton with the Hampton Law Firm. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today, I want to talk about sex offender crimes, and specifically, I want to explain what are the requirements. What types of crimes require you to register as a sex offender under Texas law? And is there anything you can do about it? Is there a way around it? All right, so if you wait around to the end of this video, I'll also give you a free ebook, What to Do If You've Been Charged with a Crime in Texas. Okay, let's jump right into this. Now, here's the reality. In the state of Texas, short of a murder charge, a sex crime is probably one of the most, really one of the most serious types of criminal cases you can receive anywhere. And the reality of it is Texas in many ways imposes harsher criminal penalties for sex crimes than many other states do. And perhaps one of the most devastating consequences of being charged with a sex crime is that there can be the mandatory requirement of having to register as a sex offender. The sex offender registration program, when it came out, was developed as a means to try to protect citizens from what they defined as sexual predators by allowing the public to have access to information about people who have either done a plea agreement or to a crime that qualifies for a registration requirement. So that way it makes it less risky for the rest of the public. That was the purpose behind it. Okay. However, here's the problem. Sex offender registration creates dire consequences for those who have to register, regardless of the severity of their sex crime. And what I mean by that is you may have committed, in a comparison, you may have committed a relatively minor crime, but yet if it qualifies to be registering as a sex offender, you're grouped in with all of these other people who have been charged with much more serious sex crimes, okay? So it's really important that people have a tendency to just judge you based on that. So if you're required to register as a sex offender, there's a couple of things that are required. You'll have to provide a current picture of yourself, as well as your work and your home address. You'll also be required to update your registration anytime you move your residence. And the Texas Sex Offender Registry allows the general public to do searches to find out anyone who is on that database. And so why do I bring that up? The bottom line is this. The public will be able to access where you are, who you are, your address, and determine that you are on this list, and people will judge you. So that makes it hard to find housing. It makes it hard to find employment. And moreover, it's not uncommon for people to face persecution and harassment as a result of this if you end up having to sign up for it. So let's identify real quickly what crimes qualify for the sex offender registry. Okay, so one of the first ones we see is we have to categorize these by a lifetime registration. That's the first category. And then the second category is the 10-year requirement, the 10-year registration requirement. Generally, if you qualify for sex offender registration, you must register for at least 10 years. Okay, so the following sex crimes require lifetime registration. All right. Number one is the continuous sexual abuse of a child. Okay. Number two, in certain forms of indecency with a child. Number three, sexual assault. Number four, aggravated sexual assault. Number five, aggravated kidnapping with intent to commit a sex crime against a victim. Burglary, if the intent was in entering the residence, if the intent was to commit a sex crime. The production, possession, or distribution of child pornography. The trafficking of a person for sexual exploitation. The compelling of prostitution, that means someone selling someone for the purpose of prostitution. The unlawful imprisonment or kidnapping if the person is also charged with a sex crime, and then certain types of obscenity. Now, those are the lifetime registration. Let's identify the 10-year registration requirement. There is certain types of indecency with a child cases that are only 10 years. There is unlawful imprisonment or kidnapping if the victim was under 17. Attempt or conspiracy to commit a reportable sex crime, soliciting a minor online, prostitution, certain types of prostitution, and a second indecent exposure. This is critical. Indecent exposure by itself is a misdemeanor offense. Think about this. You can be charged with a misdemeanor And if you're convicted of your second indecent exposure, it is a 10-year registration requirement, which is kind of beyond me. It's unimaginable to think you can be charged with just a misdemeanor and be required to register. But the law says that. That's why it's so important to know what is required and what is not. So which Texas sex crimes do not require sex offender registration? Your first time indecent exposure. So if you're charged your first time with a Class B misdemeanor of indecent exposure, it's not required. Public lewdness, that's the second one, and those are usually the two exclusive examples of sex crimes where you do not have to register. Okay. Now, even though sex offender registration is not mandatory for those crimes, the judge may still require you, here's the crazy part, if you do a plea agreement to those, he may still require you to go through sex offender counseling and sexual misconduct counseling as a result of that. So why do I bring that up? Because if you are required to register and you don't register, let's say you fail to do so, you can now be charged with a new felony crime of failure to register as a sex offender. So it's so very important that if you are already on the registration list, you have to continue to register. Okay? If you're not, that's why it's critically important that you hire an attorney before you ever take a plea deal to any sex crime case. You need to explore every option possible to try to minimize or eliminate the risk of having to register as a sex offender. So if you're facing a situation like this right now and you want to know how this applies to your case, don't hesitate to contact the Hampton Law Firm at 817-877-5200. I'd be happy to give you a free case analysis, and I promised you if you waited around to the end of this video, I'd also give you a free ebook, What to Do If You've Been Charged with a Crime in Texas. Click the link right down here below, and I'll be happy to send it right over to you. Thanks again for joining us today on this video series. I look forward to seeing you on our next one.